This is what it is.
Okay, you can go now.
Hey yo, it's Deep Convos. We're your hosts, Meg and Fran. Welcome to episode 8. We are so excited to have you, and we're excited to dive into another deep convo on a topic that we're super stoked about. And today we're going to talk about obstacles. We're going to break down one of the biggest cliches, which is, what is it? Life gives you lemons. Make lemonade, roll with the punches. You've all heard that. So we are going to explore that and integrate it into our own lives and our own experiences. So yeah, we're excited to talk about that. We hope you're doing well, staying safe. We do have a guest today, and it's actually funny. So his name is Uncle Steven, and to this day, it is
His first name is not Uncle.
Okay, listen to me. I'm about to say something.
Okay.
To this day, it's still confusing to me, like how exactly we're related. I know we've talked about this before. No, because like in the past, I actually had a joke with my friends and I called him Kunkle Steven, like a combination of cousin and uncle, because he just seemed too cool to be an uncle. You know what I mean? So he's just one of those like family members, and here he is.
We're also close in age. I mean, we're both adults, I guess. Well, obviously we're adults.
Well, now we're close in age. When I was a kid, you seemed like, oh my goodness.
When you were a kid, Fran, I remember you were a kid, and I remember I was also a kid.
Yeah,
so,
you were like what? High school or whatever.
So, wait, how old are you? You're
31, dude.
How old do you think I am? I'm 38. So I was like,
so you were in high school.
I remember you came over. You were young. So
wait, how little was I?
Probably
how
like
little?
3 or 4. Like
I was 4.
I don't like.
Aww.
Maybe 5, but I still remember being in elementary school or at most middle school.
Oh my God, you seem like you were in high school to me. You were like, he has like an instrument he plays in the high school band.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He just like seemed too cool to be.
You seemed too cool.
You know? Yeah, too cool for school.
Anyway, so does Steven, do you want to do a quick intro of who you are and what you do?
I am your uncle. I am Fran and Meg's uncle. Their father is my cousin.
There we go. That's like what I
Meg,
keep forgetting.
Don't forget.
Your grandmother is my mom's sister, so.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, connect the dots. and besides being our uncle, what else are you?
Who are you?
I am a clinical social worker. So a lot of the topics that you've talked about in your past podcasts, I would listen. I'm like, oh my, that's right on, or like good stuff. That's what I talk to patients about.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, a lot of your self-care topics or boundary setting topics that you've brought up in the past are relevant. They're effective and they're healthful. So
yes. Okay, go.
Yay.
Pat on.
Yeah.
We have approval.
Okay, cool. Okay. Okay. There's no smooth transition, so this is what you're gonna get. So before we dive into this mammoth of a topic, we're gonna start talking about how our weeks were. We always like to do a little check-in in the beginning. So, Steven, are you ready to go into how your week was, or do you want to go second? Or
I mean, this week has been just very up and down. So
okay, do you want to?
How so?
Yeah, how so?
I feel like in the last couple of days, it's been pretty heavy for a lot of people that I know, and maybe even like in the like social climate, it's been a bit heavy.
Yeah.
So that's like affected my mood. Aside from maybe like this macro level, like this social climate, as I mentioned, I'm a clinical social worker. I've been working in this field for about 7 years, but I haven't been licensed yet. Like I've been like setbacks, back-to-back setbacks and life have prevented me from really advancing in my career in terms of getting my license. Long story short, I finally got approval to take this exam. I signed up for this exam. So what I've been waiting for the last 5 years is now finally set, that I have this date where I have to take this very big exam. It's like a 4-hour exam, and it's now very real. It's just kind of sinking in like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for literally, I guess, since grad school. So it's been 7+ years. So it's kind of,
How does it, so are you like scared that it's finally here after waiting for so long? Like, how do you feel about it?
if anything, it's like anxiety provoking. I'm nervous. Because to me, if once I get this license, it allows me to get more freedom in terms of what jobs I can apply for. And I really actually don't even like working with people. Like, I like working with people, obviously, like one-on-one, but I'm not so keen on having a boss or a supervisor or an organization that I work for that doesn't align with my own core values, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway, with a license, I can open a private practice and I can just work independently.
Right.
Move on with my life.
Right. And that sort of freedom, you've never had that before. So you're like, holy shit.
I mean, I've had freedom. I've had lots of freedom. I mean, I grew up in privilege, so I've had a lot of things. Like, I'm grateful for a lot of things. But in terms of the freedom, it's, I guess, like in like my teenage years or in my 20s, I would do whatever jobs, and then when I would become reflective, like if I was drinking or like smoking weed and like just thinking, I would, in the back of my mind, I'd be like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I, like, what is the point of working in retail? What is the point of this? What's the point of being an assistant to someone? What does this all mean? Like, how am I contributing?
Yeah.
So with this license coming about, it's like, oh, I can have this freedom of mind where, like, I'm doing something that I like doing, that I enjoy doing, that I'm good at, and I'm making an impact. I have some legacy in the world. Not like I have a child or anything, but like a legacy in terms of like I've helped someone, and then there's a ripple effect.
Right. That's awesome. I mean, I know that's scary, but it's like, that's awesome because I know how that feels to be like, I mean, I've been an assistant for a lot of, like, just random jobs that you're like just paying the bills. It's like, what am I really doing?
For sure.
So, yeah, just knowing that you're gonna make an impact after you get this license is like huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I've worked in other places. I've worked in prison for 5 years. That was very rewarding in its own sense. I worked at UCLA for a little while in their partial hospitalization program with doing group therapy. And with both the prison and with UCLA, I actually left abruptly for just various reasons. Like, I didn't put in a lot of notice, or I wasn't given a lot of notice. So I had very fulfilling jobs. And then once they were done, like just very abruptly, maybe like a month later, I would go through this withdrawal process because I'm like, I used to be able to fulfill my days helping people or hearing stories or bringing relief to people's lives. And then abruptly it was cut short. And then like a month later, I'd be like, well, what's wrong? Why is my life like this? Ah.
Yeah. I hear you. So that was your week. It was like you thinking about this impending, I mean, besides the social climate, of course.
Yeah, it's this exam. I signed up for the exam. I have a date. I've signed up for exam training materials, which I've been plugging away at for the last couple of days.
So. I can't remember the last time I took an exam.
So it's all official now.
It's very official. It's very real.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed telling people that I'm taking the test because then now people will be like, oh, how'd your test go? Did you? And I'm like, no. So.
Oh, I'm going to ask it after you take it.
Right. So.
What's that?
I said it's like public accountability.
Yeah. So you better study. Just stay.
That works for some people.
Very hard.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Meg, it's your turn.
Well, I can't top that. Yeah, so my week was good. I've just been really enjoying this new morning routine that I have going on. So I'm not by any means a morning person, but as you guys know, and I think I've talked about it several times, I do make an effort to wake up early. So when it was Ramadan, I was waking up like crazy hours, but now I'm trying to get up between 5 and 5:30 a.m. every day. And I take my ass to the gym and I do a 1 hour workout, and then I go back and I do some yoga and I meditate.
1 hour
so
every day.
yeah. So that's like what I've been doing, and I do it every other day. And the days that I don't go to the gym, I still try to wake up within that time frame and I just do yoga and I meditate. So it's like very structured and very regimented, but it's like I'm really trying to do a good job of reminding myself, like, look, I've put so much emphasis and priority on my actual day job, like the past 2 months. Why don't I invest that same energy and effort into me? You know, I listened to this podcast recently about, the topic was like, you are your biggest project. Like, of all the projects in the world, you should be number one. And I feel like a lot of the times we don't do that. Like, we prioritize our friends, we prioritize our day job. And like that takes so much, that is like so much on a pedestal over ourselves, like our exercise and our well-being and all of that. So I've really been making an effort to really emphasize that morning routine, even if I don't feel like it, even if I'm tired, like I just take my ass to the gym and I do it. And I find that I feel so much better. So yeah, so I've like been successful in that. I mean, it hasn't always been easy, but I encourage listeners and people out there, like if you're not a morning person, give it a try, because it's always like the first step is always the hardest. And even with what Uncle Steven said, like I'm sure like other people in that position, maybe just booking that test or booking those exams, they just put that off because you're like, I'll just do it next week. But like putting off that first step is just going to make everything so much harder. So it's, for me, like the first step is critical, like taking that first concrete action, getting your ass to the gym. And then after that first step, everything else becomes so much easier, you know? So
yeah, it's like a domino effect.
Yeah, exactly. Domino effect. So yeah, I've been good. The week was good. And I'm just proud of myself for sticking to that regimen. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly.
Yeah, you are. It's regimen, not regime. So.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, good.
Yay. So
how about you?
This week has been, I always look back on my Google Calendar to see what I actually did. I don't know, because time doesn't make sense to me anymore. Like, I don't know what week it is.
What day is it today?
I don't know. It's the weekend before July 4th. Yeah, it was pretty good, I think. What did I do? Yeah, so I don't know. I just like, I think what you said, Meg, about making like yourself as your biggest project. I'm usually pretty good at that, but I think in the past few weeks I've just been not, I have a gratitude practice. I have like a self-inventory practice, sort of like I set aside time to be like, how do I feel right now, for like 20-30 minutes, and just like jot it down. But I haven't been doing it consistently or at all for the past few weeks, because I've just been working on, I mean, they're working on good stuff, like creative stuff, like writing monologues and like working on characters and like multiple classes, like acting classes and movement classes. But I am feeling the sort of, because like when you do that self-care stuff, it's like an internal, like you're cleaning the pipes, like you're the pipe, the emotional pipes. And I feel a little, yeah, I'm feeling it. Like when you don't do something like that for a while, you're like, I feel that. So I think, well, I have a 5-day weekend coming up. So I know they gave us 2 extra days off for July 4th. I know, I'm rubbing it in everyone's faces. But yeah, so I'm going to spend that time to be like, okay, I need to like stop being busy. Like I like being busy. Like I like doing stuff. But I need to make myself just take care of myself. I think that's what I came to that realization this week. But no, like mood wise, it's been good. I don't know, good in relative to what's happening in the world, you know, like it's never like, yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's That's my week. Meg, you're supposed to be the one
Oh, I'm on mute.
facilitating.
I'm sorry.
Goodness.
It's just a habit to mute myself when I'm not talking because I don't want like
I know I do that for
noises
work
to slip in.
So yeah.
Well, great. Thank you for sharing how your weeks went, and super excited to have our guest here today. And let's just plop into our topic. Let's just plop right into it.
Okay.
So yeah. So rolling with life's punches. So yeah, so I just wanted to take this cliche and break it down and really explore what it means, because I'm sure that when you're in the, I don't want to say pits again because we used that word last week. When you're in the rut of something shitty happening, the last thing you want to hear is someone coming up to you and saying, oh, everything happens for a reason, or just make lemonade out of it. Like the last thing you want to fucking hear is someone giving you a platitude or a cliche. And in the moment, you're like, shut up. Like, I don't want to hear that right now. But there is a reason that these cliches exist. And I feel like there are some golden nuggets inside them. So I wanted to just unpack it and see what can we take out of it. Like, yeah, they're annoying in the moment, but I mean, at least in my life, I know that looking back at those shitty moments in retrospect, I always understand. Like in the moment, I didn't want to hear someone say, oh, it happens for a reason. But then a year later, when I'm looking back at that moment, I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen for a reason. And I am glad now that I'm looking at it in retrospect that it happened. Or yeah, now that I'm looking at it, I saw how I made lemonade out of it. You know, I just needed some time, and I needed the right strategies in order to process it and make something good out of it. So that's the reason behind why we're talking about what we're going to talk about. And I think today we're going to, for all three of us, explore something specific or maybe a couple instances that happen in our lives, and how that cliche of like rolling with life's punches or making lemonade out of lemons, how you did that in your own life. And then hopefully our listeners can take some golden nuggets out of that. So yeah, anything else you guys want to add on, like just the rationale, like why we're talking about this? Or
I think when someone says, "Oh, everything happens for a reason," or "make lemons up," when someone said, like, if you're in the middle of a meltdown or some crisis, and you go to someone and like, "Oh, everything happens for a reason," to me that's a very dismissive remark. It's like that might be fine, and yes, like in 5 or 10 years from now, I can look back. Yes, I understand how that made an impact on my life, or it changed the trajectory of where I was going. But in that moment, like, okay, thanks. Make lemonade out of lemonades. Make lemonade out of lemons, or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is, like, if I were to be that supportive person to you, Meg, or Fran, I would take a time to be like, yeah, this is.
Yeah,
this
agreeing that it sucks is like the most helpful thing you could be doing for that person at that moment. Like, if I'm going to someone in the throes of, I'm in the throes of something, I'm just releasing that emotion to someone else to help me bear it. I don't want that person to then be like, oh yeah, like you're gonna be okay. Like no, I don't want to hear that right now.
Right.
Like
and it can be reassuring, and you can't tell the future. You don't know how okay it's going to be.
That's always what I end up thinking when they're like, you're going to be okay. I'm like, how the fuck do you know?
Yeah, you don't know.
That's like my immediate response.
And most people don't know how to respond to these kind of challenging.
I know, I get that. I mean, I get it being on the other side of it too. Like if a friend came to me with something huge, I've eventually learned to be like, I hear you. I'm here to listen, and it sounds horrible, and I can't possibly imagine what you're going through. Like, I don't know. I can't give you any solutions, Like, I just be honest with them.
And that's what it is too. I think it's like for me, like what I want, or at least also what I've also given with patients, is like they need a safe place to just feel sad. Just feel what it is, and not having someone else try to change how you're feeling, not having someone else try to problem solve. Like in that moment, like feel what you're feeling, go through that wave, allow it to go through whatever emotions it needs to go through. And then in retrospect, problem solve, figure out what's going on, what's the silver lining. But in that moment of crisis, of meltdown, just be there. You don't even need to talk. Just physically be in the room with them. I'm here. I'm listening. I'm here.
Right. Right. Well, that's going to be interesting to like see if people did that for me when we start talking about these things.
Yeah. So anyway, totally agree with all of that said. So do you want to go into our specific like life events and kind of unpack it from there? Shall I start?
Yeah, I mean, you're holding the mic. You're holding a mic.
We're all holding mics. Uncle Steven, an invisible mic. Yeah, so I really believe that like this is like so freaking deep, but like everything is like an ocean, right? Like and every event and all the people are like waves and everything is interconnected with each other. So me picking out a specific event in my life is not solitary. It influences what happened before it and it influences what happened after it. It's like so interwoven like a fabric. So that's why even the act of like picking something out for this podcast is kind of hard, but I'm going to try to choose something that has stayed with me for like almost a decade now because I'm almost 30. Keep coming back to this, like my age every single episode. I'm not almost 30, I'm 28, but it feels like I'm basically there. So yeah, something pivotal that happened in my early 20s was I stopped drinking. Yeah, I identified as an alcoholic. I ironically stopped drinking at the age of 21, the age that I was so excited to become, because I realized that I had a really serious problem. And I was in denial for a while and I didn't want to admit that I was an alcoholic. I was like, how can a 21-year-old like honestly be an alcoholic? I would go to meetings and I would walk into a room of like, you know, the chairs in a circle and I would see people that were like 3 times my age, you know, like middle-aged people. And here I was like, and this has nothing to do with it really. It's just where I happen to live. But I was also like the only Asian most of the time. So it's like, who the fuck is this like 21-year-old Asian girl like walking in here and saying she's an alcoholic? So there was a lot of like internal work that I had to do to just even step one, overcome that denial and say, look, like whenever you don't feel good inside or you want to deal with something, your instinct is always to put alcohol inside you to deal with it. So that's like, I can talk about that for a million years. So that I just wanted to like put it out there on the table that that is my life event. And I've alluded to it several times in this podcast, but becoming sober, especially if you decide to go through a program like Alcoholics Anonymous or 12 Steps, it's not as simple as just stopping drinking. You know, a lot of people like think it's easy as that. Like, oh, I'm just going to stop cold turkey. Like, unless you do the internal work, the mental work, the spiritual work, the emotional work, you're going to drink again eventually, you know? And like the proof of that was when I relapsed in Korea, you know, when my baby died. And I never thought in a million years I would drink again because I was like, so like, if you met me when I was like 22, 23, I was like, I had such a strong program. I was sponsoring like 5 women. I was really into the steps. At one point, I was even more into the steps than my ex at the time, who was the one who brought me into AA. You know, it was like my life, and I just needed to go to those meetings and read my book and talk to my sponsor to get through even the littlest things. You know, it was like the core of who I was. I started traveling, and that kind of fell away because I just was like, I don't have a problem anymore. I don't need to drink. Like life is satisfying me, you know? And then this horrible thing happened to me in Korea where my baby died. And I was like, what the fuck? And also just Korea, their culture is like, you drink soju for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I was like, I literally was like one night, what's the point anymore? Like, I don't even drink. I don't smoke. I don't consume substances. And my body still couldn't handle like having a baby. What's the point? You know? So I relapsed and I drank. And that just, and I'm not drinking anymore, thankfully, but that just reinforces to me that even after a period of time, I was sober, I think at that point, 5.5, almost 6 years. If you do not have a strong, like spiritual, emotional foundation, you will go back to that, like whatever. Like for me, it's alcohol. And that's why I choose not to drink, because I was not in a fit spiritual condition. And so I needed to have that like external thing to put inside me to make that pain go away. Yeah. Anyway, I want to let you guys share your life experiences before I talk about like how I made lemonade out of those lemons. But I just wanted to put that out there as like, this is something that's been part of who I am for almost a decade now, like starting in my early 20s. It's still with me now. It's not necessarily about alcohol, but it's part of it, you know, the fact that as a person, I am the kind of person where if I'm feeling pain or if I'm feeling something that it just doesn't feel good, my instinct is to like, as someone with an addictive personality, like to have something outside of me. I don't want to confront it inside because it fucking sucks. It hurts. And I want something outside of me to like put inside me, whether it's alcohol or like weed or smoking, like these things I don't even give a fuck about. But
I'm just naming
sex. Exactly. And that actually sex and alcohol went hand in hand when I was in my early 20s. But anyway, so that's my
so we're gonna
life events
to name the life events before we
I think let's do that first. What do you guys think about that? And then we can talk about our
cool
strategies.
Yeah.
Sure.
Steven, do you have something? Or do you want me to go before you?
Go. I guess first. Again, like as I mentioned before, my life has been a struggle.
Okay, so you're like still trying to like pick the highlights.
Yes. And that's like the hard part is what I was trying to say. Like it's hard to like just cherry pick something because they're all so interconnected.
Yeah. You know? I mean, I have a lot too, but I think the one big thing is when I left Christianity. I don't really know how to word it. It's not like, it sounds so grand. Like I left Christianity, like one day I just had this huge revelation and I left it. I left the church. But it actually, well, just to give a time frame on it, it happened, I think like right after college. So I was in my early 20s. But like, you know, Megan and my background is like, our family, like my parents and Meg and I, but all grew up like practicing, what would you call that Christianity? Like, non-denominational, like almost Protestant Christianity. I mean, basically our goal is like to convert people to Jesus. And wait, do you have a question, Steven? Because you already have so many questions in your face.
I'm very interested. I'm just like wondering how this is going to unfold. I have no questions. I'm literally like I'm interested.
Okay, I was like, wait, maybe I should clarify something. And so, you know, we grew up like going to this one church, and we grew up going to Sunday school. But even then, you know, a Bible camp. But even then there was just a sense of like, I just didn't feel, you know, when people like do those hymns, like they call it praise and worship, they feel like when people sing, I was watching them in church, it feels like there's something in them that's like really passionate about what they're singing about. And like, they're really connecting with this presence in the sky. And I never felt it. I just never felt it. And I would be like, how are they feeling so emotional? I don't feel any emotion when I'm doing this. But I was very studious about it. I like went to Sunday school every Sunday. I did all the Bible readings and all the work, the assignments. And I kept doing it despite this thing that started when I was, you know, 11, 12, 13. And then when I went to college, I didn't really know anything else in terms of like, all my social life has been dictated by who I went to church with. And I was always a good student, never did any drinking, never did any drugs. I was a virgin because, you know, like that's what the Bible says. So when I went to college and all my roommates were like into that stuff of like, we're free, let's like do everything, let's party. I was just like, I can't do this. So I found a group there, like a Christian group, and I found a women's Bible study group, and they became my friends. But as close as I got to them, there was still that coldness that I felt towards the preachings and the Bible and the actual thing we were all sharing. I was like, I don't actually believe this. Like, I don't feel the passion that they're all feeling. Like, they're talking about like, oh, I have a personal relationship with Jesus. I'm like, I don't feel any personal relationship. Like, who? But I was like, just kept pushing it down. I'm like, nope, just keep studying the Bible. You're going to be fine. But then like the more I really studied the Bible with those group of girls, like we really did some close study, the more I couldn't reconcile it with the preachings, with what was actually going on in the world and what I actually was finding out that I believed for myself. Like, for example, I remember this one time we were having like one Bible study night. For some reason it came up, like, you know, like there are these communities like in parts of the world that are very isolated and like missionaries haven't gotten to yet. And so there's no way they know about Christianity and God. And for some reason that topic came up, and they were like, someone was like, do you think they're going to hell? And then the consensus was like, yes, that's why we have to go and save them. Because if they don't know the love of Jesus Christ, and they're not going to get saved and they're going to go to hell. I'm like, and I outwardly, I was like, but then inwardly I was like, no, like they're good. They're not sinning or whatever. Like they don't know about it. Like, why would they go to hell for something they don't even know about? So like little things like that just piled on and on. Until eventually, so like this was in the making for like almost a decade. It wasn't like a huge like spark that was like, oh, this is all false. Like, it took me so many questions, and there were a couple of people in that group, that women's group, that I voiced those doubts with, and they were like, oh yeah, doubt is normal. That's part of the relationship with God. But whereas some of them, you rolled your eyes. Whereas some of them were like, yeah, I had those doubts, but then, you know, I came back. I never, I was like, didn't believe I would come back. So I was like, eventually there was one day I holed up in a room and was like, how am I going to tell them? Because I knew I would tell them first before my family, because I was so close with those girls. Like, they're my closest friends. So I just drafted this thing that I would tell them, and then I told them as a group, and it was like the hardest thing I've ever done. And then I literally went through a depression. Like, it wasn't even a light sadness. Like, it was like, I couldn't talk to anyone. I was in my room for like, I don't know how long, like a week. It felt like the darkest, deepest despair I had ever felt, because that was such a core part of my life. And then I was forced to reckon with like, oh shit, but now I have to come up with my own beliefs. Oh, but what do I believe? Like, it's not Christianity. It was huge. It felt like, I can't even describe it. It felt so, it felt like I was grieving something that I had lost.
Yeah. You're grieving.
I mean, it's a huge part of me. Yeah.
Sure.
And so that was mine. And it's funny because like some of those girls, like a few years like afterward, they kept thinking I was going to come back. They kept thinking, oh, she's going through the doubt phase. And even my family too, my parents. But yeah, I never came back because I developed my own beliefs that are based on my truth. And I'm very strong in that. So I didn't need to come back to something that would help me figure out what I believed. So now I think they've accepted it. But I mean, ultimately, I grew far away from all of them because that's the only thing that we shared is that. Yeah. So that's mine. Okay, did that give you enough time?
Oh, that was quite a journey.
It was a journey.
I remember being a part of that, like from a side, like watching you both grow up or hearing about how you were raised with religion.
Yeah.
And I have my own opinions on that. And I remember being like, oh boy, wow, they are going through a lot of shit.
Oh my God, really?
I mean, I felt for you both for years because I am not religious in any way. I mean, I was raised Catholic, but then my mom, when we would go to church, she's like, oh, the parking lot looks too crowded. Let's go to McDonald's.
Are you serious?
Maybe we go to church like 6 times a year, maybe.
Okay, like casual Catholics.
Oh, and then we would show up at the back, and we would be late, and we would show up in the back. And then as soon as they started doing communion, she's like, oh, let's go before the parking lot gets crowded.
Oh my God.
So it was like 20 to 30 minutes. And that was up until like 10, or 10, I don't know, whatever. It fizzled out. But
yeah,
hearing about both of you and then getting like cards or emails from your parents.
Oh man.
It was just, it was like Merry Christmas and then text of stuff that I'm like, this is like a foreign language to me. And I get it. Like, if this is what gives you structure, gives you comfort, gives you whatever it is, fine, I get it. And like, please, I don't really care.
Right.
So, because it's like, I have my own value system, but I'm not like walking around like, hey, Merry Christmas, just so you know, there's no purpose in life. So it,
Right.
like,
You're not like foisting your value system on other people.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
So,
I get it.
anyway, from being afar and like knowing, you're my nieces, my cousin, whatever, I'm like, wow. And then as you guys got older, as you, were able to start thinking on your own, and
Yeah, we basically had to leave them to be able to be like, you can survive without them.
yeah,
Basically.
yeah.
Oh,
sure.
wow. That's interesting hearing what it looked like from the outside.
Oh, we'll have a whole other go on for days.
Oh,
We should have
gosh.
a weekend retreat, and you'll see.
Wait, what is this quote that you just put here, Meg? Oh, wait, I'm going to read it. Meg just put this quote. Religion is like a dick. It's fine to have one, but you shouldn't walk around shoving it down other people's throats.
Exactly. Here, look at it. Open your mouth.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you can't get away from this forever, Steven. It's your turn.
Oh, I mean, I guess. Oh, gosh.
And then we're going to take a break. So that if that helps after you share yours.
My life is just a lot of struggle. I guess the thing that keeps coming up is like, I guess, appearance and weight. Like, I was obese, very overweight in high school. And then only after I left home did I start losing weight. So
Interesting.
right. And then I'm like, what is it? Maybe because there's not like food all over the place, or maybe I'm not, I mean, I could think very deeply now about it. Like, oh, there was no, like when I was at home, there was so much turmoil or conflict or dysfunction. So the way that I would cope with it is by just activating the pleasure systems of my brain by eating something that tasted good.
Yeah.
So I think with that, it's been a very, like, my appearance has changed a lot over 20, 30 years. And I can say that people, it's kind of disheartening to say, but I see how people have treated me differently over time. Like being very overweight and having a lot of acne growing up, it felt like you were invisible. I felt invisible. I felt pushed aside, or I felt being taken advantage of. Then you start losing weight, and then the skin starts clearing up, and then people start treating me differently. People are nicer to me. People have a closer social, personal space, which I found almost just, like in one hand, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting attention, or I'm interacting with my world now, but it contrasts with where I was years prior, where I was invisible. And then as I got older, different things, working out, different types of attention. And because I was so overweight, and then I lost a lot of weight, I had loose skin for several years. And I don't think you both know this, maybe you do, but I had cosmetic surgery a couple years ago.
No, I did not know that.
Yes.
To get rid of the loose skin.
So I got like loose skin removed from the arms, and I had a tummy tuck done. And this all happened, this was financed, like my mom died 2 years ago. And then when she died, I got a bunch of inheritance. Mm-hmm. And then so I'm like, finally, like I can do this thing that I've been thinking about for many years.
Yeah.
Because I talked about it with like, I guess I talked about it with grad school friends, college friends, etc. But the friends that I had known like in the last few years were like, oh, this is a big decision. Are you sure? Blah, blah, blah. And then I would talk to friends from college when I was in my 20s, and they're like, you've been talking about this forever. Like, this is not like some impulsive thing.
Right, right.
So, and then my therapist, even him, like he was like, oh, I get it. Like, I support you in this decision. So, and I got it. I got a tummy tuck, and I will say, if you want to simulate dying, get cosmetic surgery. It was horrible. It is the worst experience, physical experience, psychologically.
Really?
It's horrible. It was like, just like for me, it was the first 6 to 8 weeks was just persistent pain, persistent, like waking up, going to sleep, just being lying there, taking medication. It like numbed the pain, but it was like you still knew there was pain. Dressing myself, like I had no support. I had support. Like my dad's wife is a nurse, so she lives in the house. She would come in and she'd check my temperature, and then she would clean my apartment. But aside from that, like I had like the whole day was like on my own.
Yeah. Oh my God. No one ever thinks about that when they think about it's cosmetic surgery. They don't think about the post-op.
Right,
oh, no.
exactly.
No, yeah, for sure. Like I didn't think about it. I mean, I knew like, I'm healthy right now. Like I know I can heal. Like I have the financial resources. I can take time off work. I know that I could do these things. And it is the worst, devastating. And then I remember I'd be crying, and then because I'm alone and just you're immobile and just in your mind, I'd be like weeping, and then thinking it would bring me back to a place where I was like 5 years old or 4 years old when I would cry that deeply. And I remember one time I was crying so hard that it got to a point where my mind was saying to myself, no one's like, I guess I was crying because I wanted some comfort. Like I wanted someone to comfort me in some way. But my mind eventually, my inner dialogue got to the point where it said, no one is going to come. No one's coming. This is just yours. This is your experience. No one's going to come. And essentially forcing me like, this is, you got to do this on your own because no one's going to be here. You can't rely on anybody for this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I can't wait to hear about how, I mean, that's hard to tell yourself you can't rely on anyone. It's hard to like rely on yourself, which I think that's what is a common thread in all of our stories. It's like, we had to figure out that, it's,
exactly. We had to take ownership and responsibility.
Take ownership.
Of the experience, stop relying on external sources and really like dig down deep and be like, okay, I've cried all the tears. I've done all the things. Now what? What is the next proactive step I can take that is fully my responsibility and fully my doing? Yeah.
And that's where this meditation stuff comes in, where it's like, okay, I'm like clearing my mind from like, okay, this is what it is. Is it pain or is it just sensation? It's sensation. It's intense sensation. I know in past podcasts, you folks have talked about yoga. I would not have survived this recovery experience had I not done yoga for the last.
That's awesome.
Because changing your clothing or underwear with all, like, I was like, okay, I'm like doing these like tree pose or essentially, or like trying to. Yeah. Like if I did not do yoga, like I would be on the floor. I would be.
Yeah. I like to think of yoga as like sort of a training for life, really. It like really helps you in so many ways for life, not like to be fit, which helps too, but totally. Okay. I think this is a good time.
That's good to hear.
I love yoga. To take a short break. So I'm going to pause it real quick.
Okay, welcome back, listeners. So those were our life events. Maybe they're similar to yours. Maybe they're not. Maybe they remind you of other things that have happened to you that have been adversities. So now we're going to go into the proactive part of our podcast, some strategies, some actionable things that you can apply to your life to deal with said adversities or any other adversities that may come up. In other words, rolling with life's punches. What does that mean to us? How do we enact that in our lives? So, guess I'll revisit my life event now, or not life event, but just like this thing that's been a part of me for the past almost decade. So in terms of strategies, a big thing is just accepting every phase of my life, accepting the fact that I am a human and that I will fuck up, and I have every right to fuck up. Like, I'm a human. What matters is how I bounce back from it. You know what I mean? Because when I relapsed, it's pretty shitty. I was like, it was just compounded on top of all of the other shit I was going through, was the fact that I felt like a horrible human being. I felt like a failure. I'm like, wow, you fucking drank again. Like, it really can't get any worse now, you know? But, you know, like now I've just accepted that I had every right to do that. That's just like what I needed to do at that time. I'm not saying it was right, you know, but the fact that I can realize it and pinpoint it as like a lesson in the future, I know that like I'm okay with me having relapsed. And you know, if you go into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous or you talk to an alcoholic or anyone who's suffering from addiction, like you will probably meet some people who have relapsed, some of them several times, and those actually served as really big lessons for them. And they wouldn't take those relapses back for anything because it taught them like, oh my gosh, like this reinforces to me that I do have a problem. You know, this shows me more about like who I am, what my weaknesses are, what I tend to do when I run into adversity. So, you know, yeah, the relapse sucks, but it taught me something about myself. And it just further reinforced to me like, look, this is something that I need to stay away from. And yeah, just like what my inclination is when shit happens. So yeah, so acceptance has been a big part of just giving myself grace to be a fucking human, you know, like not being so hard on myself, like yeah, like grace, compassion, acceptance towards myself has really been like my guiding light throughout all these years. Sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if that like carried over into like other parts of your life, like that mindset of like giving yourself grace when you fuck up. Like, did you find that because you learned that through your alcoholism and your relapse, that you're like in other areas of your life where you've face planted, you're like, but you know what? Like, do you find that other parts of your life are changing because of that or have changed?
Yeah, so actually that strategy of like compassion and also other strategies you've talked about in other podcasts, like setting boundaries, those are all things that I actually learned in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, like before I got sober. And that's why like becoming sober is such a pivotal point in my life, because every single one of these strategies is like something I learned from becoming sober, you know, like, which is funny because now it's like I apply these to things that don't even have anything to do with alcohol, like setting boundaries and whatnot. Having compassion with myself. I didn't know how to do that. Like, I've always been the kind of person who is so fucking like perfectionist and setting all these crazy expectations of myself, which is exactly what we talked about last week with like comparing yourself to other people. You know, that's just the kind of person I am. And like some days it serves me well, like in my day job, you know, being ambitious and setting those high goals, but other times it doesn't. You know, and so just learning to be compassionate and treating myself as a human and giving myself grace, those are strategies I learned in the rooms, and obviously like has helped me through like that specific like what caused me to relapse, you know, like my loss. It helped me through that. That in itself is like something I do want to have another podcast about, because it's just a lot. Like I felt like a failure, that in itself, you know, like as a human and as a woman. So yeah, so to answer your question, like it's a big part of my life and like everything that I do, regardless if it's my day job, if it's, I don't know, like I fucked up with someone and I feel guilty that I treated them bad. Like the important thing is that I A, have compassion with myself, and B, I do the next right thing. And that also is a quote from AA. Just do the next right thing. Okay, I fucked up with this person. What is the next right thing? Is it to go apologize? Is it to write them a letter? You know, okay, fuck, I relapsed. Okay, what's the next right thing to do?
It reminds me of like a few meditation teachers that I listen to. Like a common theme that they say is like, oh, did you lose focus or did you get carried away with an emotion or a sensation? You can always begin again. It's fine. You can just begin again. Exactly. Like it doesn't matter where you are.
That's another AA strategy, is take it one day at a time. For me, and like what I told my sponsees is I would tell them, if you need to take it 1 minute at a time, even you can restart in the next minute if you need to. You don't need to wait till tomorrow. You don't need to wait till next week. You don't need to wait till New Year's Day. You can set your resolution in the next minute. Did I fuck up this minute? I always have the power and I always have the choice to do the next right thing in the next second, like in the next microsecond. And so reminding myself of that, it's like a dual thing, like compassion and like the soft side of it, but also like the power side of it. Like I'm always in the power mode here. But the problem is I fall into that victim mentality. And it's only when I realize that like, I actually like, I'm very empowered right now, because like what Uncle Stephen was saying, the responsibility lies with me. I do not have to rely on other people for this. If I want to take the next action, I can do it. I don't need to ask for permission. I don't need to wait for next year. I have the power to do it right now. And it just takes that like realization to take that next step of action.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that, Stephen? Where we move on?
So the question that kept coming up in my mind was where did you get this idea of perfectionism from?
Me, because I just like, that's just how I am as a person. Like it's how I am when I was in school. I tend to be the kind of person, I just take on a lot on my plate because I think I can do it all. In our very first podcast episode on productivity, I talked about this, how it's like kind of a high for me, like getting 10 things done or 30 things done in a day. It's like, I'm awesome. And this is like kind of has deeper roots into like my childhood and this whole shit with my mom, is like this feeling of inadequacy. And I think that's the root of like all my problems in my life, of like my alcohol problem, my sex problem, is like, I don't like feeling inadequate. I just hate it. I don't like feeling like a failure. And so whatever I can do to combat that feeling of like, oh, I got 10 things done today, or I delivered 10 things today at my job, or I went to the gym before even 6 a.m. Those things make me feel good, and it makes me feel accomplished, and it like pushes away that like inadequate failure feeling that I just don't like. So I know there's like some deeper therapy shit in there, but that's just, I know that's who I am as a person. And I've identified that. Oh no.
I'm just gonna say I relate to that a lot. You literally, before we went on mic, Stephen, Meg was telling me like, when you get a day off or 2 days off, the point of that is to take care of yourself and not, then this is a time to add 5 things to my plate that I can check off. Right. And I feel, but saying I feel good when I check things off, I don't think it's good. I feel good. I just feel like, then that I'm an accomplished person. I mean, personally, I'm like, I accomplished something. It doesn't necessarily mean I feel rested or rejuvenated. And so it's like something to explore. Like, Meg, it's like, what are we uncomfortable with when we don't check that off? Like, what are we avoiding when we make sure to check things off?
Yeah. And that's what I'm starting to like learn how to give myself compassion and grace for, is like realizing if I don't get this thing done, people are not going to die. Like, I'm not doing open heart surgery.
Yeah. What is
that's
that
like
feeling you're avoiding?
Tell myself.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a work in progress for me, but I'm just like putting it out there as like something that I'm actively working on. Like the first step is identifying your weaknesses, right? In AA, we say your character defects. I know for a fact that is one of my character defects, is perfectionism, and letting feelings of inadequacy get to me and drive everything that I do. So that's the first step. I've identified it. That's like a huge milestone in itself. A lot of people are in denial about that. And are in denial about what their character defects even are. So I'm already feel powerful about that. I've identified it. Now it's in my power to do something about it.
The vast majority of people don't have the insight to know these things that you're just talking about. Just like,
it's like another world.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's good. It's just, again, like the vast majority of people don't, just to no fault of their own, they don't take time to look inward. They don't take time to see like, well, where did this behavior come from? Because so much of who we are is just their learned behaviors, like racism. It's a learned behavior. It's a learned mentality. So even this idea of perfectionism, this pressure that we put on ourselves, where is it coming from? So here we are discussing, having this deep convo. What I'm saying is the vast majority of people don't take, it's so painful to be in this deep convo place.
Yeah, it's painful. It's uncomfortable. And people would rather, like going back to numbing, people would rather be numb to it. They would rather do something external that would make it feel comfortable. Yeah. Oh, wait, is that all? Meg, do you have any further words?
That's it. And I guess like just to tie everything up with a pretty ribbon, like, I did get physically sober, but I just think it's like a really apt metaphor because when you're sober, you have to experience everything without that numbing effect. whether it's sadness or whatever. You have no choice, because I don't have anything in my body. I have to physically experience it. But on the flip side of that, I had to learn how to do that, and I'm still learning how to do that on an emotional aspect, not the physical part. I have to be like, if I'm feeling something shitty, I've learned as a tactic, like with my physical sobriety, to accept it and to feel it and not push it away. And so that has been one of my, something I'm working through with quote unquote adversities. You know, yes, I'm physically sober, but as a person, I am also actively practicing that emotional sobriety of accepting everything that life hands me and not running away from it, you know, not pushing it aside, not hiding it, not denying it. So that's it for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like similar to what you guys were gonna say, but like maybe it'll
No, I agree.
flow into your.
That's like my life's goal is to just always be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I didn't really employ any strategies. I was so young. I wasn't really very self-aware. I just knew that there was this huge thing that was clamping down on who I really was. Like, even like I wasn't thinking about it in those terms. All I knew was that like I don't believe in this and I need to leave it because I feel like I'm a half a person. I feel like I'm not I didn't feel fully realized because of, and I knew it was partially because of Christianity, like that, what I was doing. It just felt weird. Like it felt weird that everyone else was saying, oh, Christianity makes me whole. And it did the opposite for me. That's like literally as far as my self-awareness was going. And I knew I had to leave it. So in terms of strategies, I didn't employ any knowingly. But hindsight is really 2020 because, well, just the aftermath of it, I told you guys I felt like I was grieving a loss, but more than that, greater than the grief was a sense of huge relief, like huge freedom, in the sense that I don't want to say like Christianity doesn't work at all. Like if it works for people, like that's great. But for me, it felt like a prison. Like it felt like I literally was, the shackles are off. Someone opened the door and I could breathe and feel like actual sunlight. So I was grieving, but I was also like, hallelujah. Pun intended. So and now that I've had like almost a decade to really, live with that, it's it was the beginning of something I'm still working on now, in terms of like I have this like weird feeling nowadays, like this whole year living in New York, there's this feeling inside of me that I'm bigger than I'm letting myself be. Like there's something in me that I'm clamping down on, like personality wise, because I was raised to be polite. I was raised to be Christian. I was raised to like, no, little things like, oh, don't like go out with, like not celebrate my sexiness, for example, because it's like guys only want one thing and you don't want them to get the wrong idea. But like little things like that, like little ideas like that Christianity was just the first stepping stone of, like, once that was gone, I was like slowly, like more and more like layers were getting unveiled. And now when something, I'm not going to get specific, that's like a topic of another podcast, but like when things happen and I clamp down on myself, I don't say for example, I don't say my opinion on something, because it's like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. And then later on, I feel like shit and beat myself up. And it's like, you could have spoken what you thought. Like, that doesn't make you any less of a person. And you're not, I'm just always, there's like this like deep, learned fear of like, don't fully express yourself because it's rude or we're supposed to please everyone. I mean, it's also cultural, not just religious, but yeah, it's like looking back on it, it's like, wow, that was like honestly the first step towards my current journey to like being this full person. And when the time it really hit me was like a few months ago, where one of my acting teachers, like I did something in class and he was like, you know what, Fran, like when I see you, I see like a red dragon rising from the flames. Like he literally said that image. And I was like, or something like a red bird, something with like huge with wings with fire in the back. And that image has stayed. At first I was like, what are you talking about? I was so shy and like small, but I'm like, I'm not shy and small. Like that's just something that I've been taught.
Yeah.
And I never internalized it. And ever since then I was like, yeah, it's true. Like I have more in me than I'm not allowing. And so yeah, not a strategy, but like a revelation in terms of like I'm still working on it, and I'm getting bigger and bigger in terms of who I really am now. So yeah, that's my thing. And does
I
anyone
like
have any
that. Like
thoughts?
it's all a journey. Like every single one of these adversities is like a puzzle piece towards
Yeah.
building you into your biggest, best version of yourself. And if you look at everything that happens in your life through that lens, it's like, this is just another piece that I'm adding to like my awesome
Right.
masterpiece of a quilt that is me. This is supposed,
Whoa.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it's supposed to happen. I hate that cliche, but sometimes I do believe it.
No, but I actually believe
believe
that.
Yeah. I actually believe it. I just don't like what Uncle Steven said. I don't like hearing it when I'm in the fucking
No, not in the throes of
whatever.
emotion. You don't want to feel it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
But, yeah.
And that's why I actually relate to Steven's. Okay, so I also used to be overweight, obese. I totally relate to your story so much in terms of like I also let that sort of dictate how I was, like how I looked at life. Anyway, I'll let you talk about it, but yeah, I related so much to what you just talked about. So
Like feeling invisible, and then
yes,
yeah,
holy shit! Like isn't it crazy? Like I was really big, but I felt even smaller than everyone else. Like I felt like I wasn't a full person, and people were treating me like I wasn't a full person. I mean, and worse, people calling me shit that was horrible. But and you're always gonna have. I mean, maybe not, but I know I always have that little fat kid in me still. To this day,
we do. I mean, it's like a foundation of who we are in terms of like our life experience. So whenever we face threats, our brain's going to go automatically to the first time we felt that, and it's probably when we were a kid.
Yeah.
So
okay, well, what did you, looking back on it now, I mean, I don't know when was the last time you talked about that experience before this, but any things pop up at you?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. I just remember people. I just remember the world interacting with me differently as few years have gone by. Like each 4 to 5 year segment of time, it in one hand it was nice. It was like, okay, you know, this is cool, whatever. And the other hand, it's like, well, so you only want to talk to me because of how I look, or what is it? So it's, I guess for me, it's like, I don't know who to trust in that sense. Which,
yeah, is that still how you look at things today, or was it just then that you felt that? I mean, I'm sure it's still there. I still think that sometimes too.
I think what sticks around today is like the old body, for instance. So like doing a lot of yoga, doing like I go swimming every day, and I do yoga at least once or twice a week. And then feeling my body untangle or unfold or develop. And then like being very conscious of that. And then going about my day, like I can feel my body. Sometimes it might be hunched over, or sometimes I might be in a certain position where I'm like, that's not my current body, but that's like the muscle memory of the first 20 years of my life.
Yeah.
So when I take a deep breath and I realize like, well, actually that's not what my body's musculature is now.
Right.
So when I remind myself to take a deep breath, I'm like, well, this sitting like this is actually uncomfortable. So But when I take a deep breath, I can feel like, okay, everything is untangling, loosening up. Like, this is the current version. This is who I am right now. While that past
Yeah.
version is the foundation, and it's impacted my belief system and all sorts of things. Bottom line is, like, right now in this moment, like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
So I think it's, if anything that has helped me over the last 20 years, it's obviously therapy, it's mindfulness, positive psychology, positive thinking. Because if I've had that mindset from childhood, we're like, oh, what? Like, even with religion, I'd be like, why would God make me this fat? Why would God do this to me? Why would God make me gay and make me feel so isolated from the world or from my peers? And I'd have these thoughts like in high school or elementary school maybe. But
Yeah.
so it made me also question religion in that sense. But it's just being aware. Like, I took my undergraduate degrees in sociology, and it's the study of society. Like, why do we, who decides what beauty is? Who decides what wealth is, what status is, how we eat? Like, I remember my first year in college going into the dorm, going into the food hall in the dorms, and I remember eating with, and I think you both can relate to this, is I was eating with a fork and a spoon.
Uh-huh.
And eating with this, like, my classmates were like looking at me like, why are you using a spoon? Like,
That's how you eat.
how Filipinos eat.
Yeah, that's how we eat.
So, but so it's like being aware, like, well, this is what this group of people does. This is what this group.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Long story short, within all this adulthood, it's about being aware.
Yeah. Yeah. And that experience has like increased your awareness.
Like, when you increase your awareness, then you can make conscious decisions of how to move forward. So
Right.
we're going to do this thing. So I do this with my groups. When I'm in my group, when I used to do group therapy, I'd be like, all right, everybody, hold your hands out like this. If you want to do it, you can't. We'll put your mic down. Okay. So for those that are listening, you put your hands, you put your hands out, and then quickly you're going to grasp your hands together like that. Go. Okay. So then if you look, what finger is on top? Is it the left finger or the left thumb or the right thumb? So for me, it's my left thumb. So now I'm going to put my hands out again, and now switch the thumb that was on top, make sure it's on the bottom or whatever. Just switch the thumbs and go. So how does that feel?
It feels weird, but I like it.
Yeah.
It feels weird, but it's fine.
It feels weird.
You like it?
Yeah.
The point of that is, like, for years and years, whatever, like, oh, put your hands together. You know, you put your hands together, and it's always been the left hand on top.
Uh-huh.
But now that you've been consciously aware, like, okay, my left's on top, and now I'm consciously making the decision to change a behavior, it's a little weird. It's fine.
Right.
But initially, the first time, it's a little weird. I would do this in groups of like 20 people, and they'd be like, I didn't even get my hands together, or, you know, there's many random comments. But the point of all that is, once you bring awareness into what you're doing in your everyday life, then you can make a conscious decision of how to, do you want to keep this? Do I want to change something?
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's great. And awareness is the complete opposite of numbness, or the numbing that we were just talking about.
That's a good point.
You know, to be aware, you need to like take the actions to take care of yourself. Like, I mean, it's okay. Like with me, I just want to like reinforce to my listeners, I am an actual alcoholic. I mean, it's okay to enjoy a glass of wine or whatever. Like, if you do not have an addiction, continue to enjoy it. But like, obviously everything in moderation. Just be aware that how you are treating your body and yourself and your mind, like, don't do it to the point where you lose that awareness.
Yeah.
You know, because so I think that's good. That's like a perfect, like, full circle to what we were just talking about.
And that is hard, being aware, because we are on autopilot. Like in the vast majority of people are just on autopilot. Wake up, brush my teeth, take a shit, go do this. Like, go to work, get to work.
Right.
Home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to sleep, wake up. It's
yeah. Yep. Yeah. Ugh. No, it's so true. It's so I'm always working on that. It doesn't matter how long I've been working on mindfulness. I still have to be like, what are you doing right now? You know?
Yeah.
It's like a muscle. It's like, you have to practice it. Otherwise it's gonna go bad.
Like even before this recording, I was like frantically hair drying my hair. And I'm like, you know what? Like just drying my hair as quickly as possible is not going to make this any easier.
Exactly.
That's why I texted you, like, I need drying my hair. Like,
yeah. Right. That's that's another topic for another day. It's like you always you're like, oh, I'm about to do this thing. I have to make sure I do this, this, and this, because I always do this, this, and this before I do this, so that I feel comfortable doing this new thing. But then you get there not having done one of those things, prepared for the worst, and you're like, oh, actually, it's not bad. And like, if you're really in the moment, you're like, I'm actually just enjoying this party. With
for sure. Yeah.
People. Back to mindfulness, back to awareness. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh my God. I want to talk to you. I want to have you back because I want to talk about that whole, like the being overweight, but then losing all that weight and then people treating you differently.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one. That's a good one for maybe our taboo topic series.
I never fully thought about that, but that's how I honestly feel that way. Like before I lost weight, like I never got any attention from guys mainly, but now it's like, oh, and like now that I lost weight, like now I'm desirable.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's for
right. I was like,
I mean,
there's a biological reason anyway.
No, okay, wait. Don't put a pin on it. Don't forget it. Wait.
I was like, pop. And you're like, no, no,
pop it. Wait, but do you want to come back? That would be awesome.
Maybe.
No, shit. Okay, well, okay. No, Meg, I'll let you do that. The thing.
The wrap up. The thing that you do.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's it, listeners. I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you took something away from it. We certainly enjoyed talking about these things that have happened in our lives. It's all very personal. It means a lot to us. And we believe that, putting our stories out there and how we coped with it and how we grew as people because of it will inspire you and help you in some way. So as always, we want to hear your thoughts. It's not just us. Like, these are just 3 perspectives. We want to hear how you've handled adversity. We're going to talk about our socials at the end, but definitely we're open to hearing from you as well. So just to sum everything up, our strategies, right, for making lemonade out of lemons is number 1, have acceptance and compassion with yourself. Accept that you are a human. You're going to go through shit. You're not going to deal with everything in the perfect way. No one is perfect. And just give yourself the grace to unfold the way that you need to unfold. Number 2 is embrace the journey, that everything that is happening to you is making you into the full best person that you are, and try to look at everything that happens in your life with that lens. And then I guess number 3 is practice mindfulness and awareness. It's like a muscle.
Yes.
It's like it's like, I feel like, when we talk on this podcast a lot about mindfulness, it seems like it comes naturally to us or whatever. It doesn't. That's why I was talking about like my super rigid morning routine. I have to actively be like, okay, it's time to meditate, even if I don't feel like it, or okay, it's time to do yoga. Even exercising is a form of mindfulness in itself. I have to be really in tune with my body instead of like, okay, I'm going to do this. No, I have to be fully present in order to get the benefits of this exercise that I'm doing. So it's a muscle. You have to practice it. It's not easy, but you have to just be invested in that. So there are strategies. And I really enjoyed talking about this. I thought this is great. Do you guys have any closing parting
Nope, that was
words for?
perfect. But Steven, do you have any?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so one song, so things that also help, like there's a current, I think, Demi Lovato song called I Love Me.
Oh, I've never heard of that. I should check it out.
Check it out. Even just read the lyrics. I think
Mhm.
they can definitely apply to a lot of stuff that we've been saying in terms of like self-love and self-care. A couple books.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Oh.
So
Okay.
mindfulness. In terms of mindfulness, I like the Illustrated Happiness Trap.
Okay.
It's based off of, it's essentially it's called acceptance commitment therapy. You accept some circumstances, you commit to value systems therapy, acceptance commitment therapy. So the happiness trap comes in a text only version, which I've read and that's good. But this illustrated one is so much easier to read. And it
Okay.
has the same
Noted.
content. So the Illustrated Happiness Trap by Russ Harris and Bev Eisbet. So that's something for mindfulness.
Okay.
And then this last book I have is called, for positive psychology, it's called Hardwiring Happiness. I was recommended.
Oh my gosh, I totally read that.
You
My
did?
therapist recommended that book to me. Yeah, when I got sober. Yes.
It's great. So you're essentially reprogramming your brain to, instead of being like, woe is me, life is this, why did this happen to me? When we do that, we're reinforcing those neural pathways to grow the negative thoughts.
Right.
But with the Hardwiring Happiness, we're actively training our mind to seek the gratitude, look for the good things in life. And yeah, once you train yourself to do that, like, despite the circumstance you might be in, you can find some positivity within struggle.
Yeah. That goes hand in hand with what Meg was saying about it's a muscle. Like you have to work on, because it's like something we've learned to do is like negatively talk to ourselves. It's like so habitual to be like, the negative is what pops in first.
Which goes back to that Demi Lovato song, I Love Me. Listen to that next if you have a chance, even during your break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you for those recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's glad to be here. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you for showing up. And we'd love to have you back. I'm serious.
I'd love to be back. Yes.
Thanks. Yay.
Awesome. Great.
You're doing the awkward goodbye. You're doing the awkward goodbye.
Why is always me?
No, Meg is doing all the awkward
stuff. Like the waving, like, bye.
Okay, well, this is really weird. I'm just feeling put on the spot.
Well, it's your job. It's your job.
Oh, okay. Well, we really enjoyed having you. This was such like an awesome deep convo. It's exactly the kind of convo that I love to have on a Sunday, but actually like every day. Yeah. So like Ate Kukai said, oh sorry. Like Fran said,
you already said it before, so it's fine.
Definitely open to having.
Yeah, but before you go, do you want to share your social media? Your Instagram?
Yeah. Social media.
I mean, you don't have to. We don't want to. Yeah.
I'm not. No, thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, that's cool. You'll just remain our uncle.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. So
enjoy your game day.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
Yes, enjoy.
Okay.
Sounds super fun.
All right. Do you want me to hang up?
Yeah, you have to hang up. That's the thing.
All right, guys. Have fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we are back. Meg left me to drift away, so I took over. So now we're gonna move on to our segment called "What We're Loving This Week." For a little reprieve. I know that whole thing was pretty deep. So we're going to go a little bit, I mean, it's not necessarily lighthearted, but Meg, what things did you love this week or thing? I don't know how many things you liked.
I just want to talk about one really. So I watched a movie last night. It's called Return to Zero. Has a lot of really great actors in it. The lead character is a woman, played by Minnie Driver. That's her name,
Yes,
right?
I
Minnie Driver.
love her.
And there's a bunch of other actors who are like famous and like I know their faces, but I'm horrible with names. But it's like a pretty good cast of people. But anyway, I am recommending this movie to not just people who've had like pregnancy loss or stillbirths, but basically to everyone if you're wanting to learn more about, you know, what I went through. And I know that we're planning to have a podcast about it soon, but I just think it's good to see like stuff such as this that is so under researched and so like there's not a lot out there in a movie, that like seeing something like that depicted in like a mainstream thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's just so important. And like, it was the first time that I watched something that was a full-fledged movie with like awesome cast of people that like obviously like a lot of money and time went into it, and seeing like my experience reflected in it so accurately was just amazing, you know? And I
Wow.
think it could serve as a good like educational thing to people who have no idea what stillbirth is about. Just like, what is it like? What does the father go through? What is the experience like at a hospital? Obviously, the movie depicts it in America, so it's like what happened to this woman when she had her dead baby. It's like very different from what I went through because I delivered in Korea, so it was actually interesting to see like this is how it should be. And even so, like there's still a lot of work to be done and how these parents are treated, you know. But it's like if you
Yeah.
have any questions about that, because I know I've talked about it a lot, or if you're my friend or acquaintance and perhaps like you didn't know what to say to me, and I don't blame you for that. Like before that happened to me, I didn't know either. So that's why I think this movie is so great, and I really recommend it to people who are curious about stillbirth and what that is like. So that is my just like my one and only thing that I'm loving this week, because it really was a great movie and it really touched me.
I had no idea they like made like a Hollywood movie on that topic.
They like it was like a project that I don't know like the exact background of it, but it was inspired by a true story, like a couple, and I think maybe they funded this or something, but they just wanted something mainstream to go out there so that like bereaved parents could relate to something and actually watch their own story, because there's nothing out there on this.
Is it on Netflix?
And it's not. You can rent it on Amazon, I think. I happen to find like a free version, but I would just I recommend just renting it because the free version like fucked up at the end. But
yeah, okay,
it's really good.
Noted.
That's my recommendation.
Cool. Mine is. Wait, what was that? What did you do there?
Like your turn.
Oh, it's like you high-fiving me.
Kind of.
I have a couple things. One is this new deodorant, dude. Okay, so
I've heard of that.
So I've always thought I would either have to use like a medical, like clinical strength deodorant, like Dove, or what's the other one? It starts with an S. Dove, or you know that blue one, Secret. They both have medical versions, and it's like I always thought I would have to use that and put all these chemicals in my armpits, and that's what I had been doing because I sweat so much, and it also like obviously sweat, underarms smell, and I sweat so much and it's getting so hot, and I thought there was no hope because like whenever I tried to use something natural, like for example you suggested coconut oil, and which I was using. I really liked coconut oil, but it wasn't enough. It didn't stop my sweat at all. So it was either that or like I was debating like, oh my God, do I need to get Botox in my armpits? Oh no. But then I had heard of this natural vegan, like all natural ingredients deodorant called Native. And at first I was like, yeah, right. It's just another one like the other ones that you've heard of, like I'm forgetting all the names now, but because I'd tried natural deodorants before, they never worked. But I was like, you know what? They're having a sale. They're having like a 15% off sale, and they have different scents. And then there's like you have the option of like creating your own scent, like based on like you just answer a few questions about like your like what happens there. And so wait, I'm gonna grab it actually. So like I bought it. Here's what it looks like for YouTube viewers. They put my name on it. It's the other way around. But and the ingredients for mine are just I mean, there's like tapioca starch, there's coconut oil, there's shea butter, there's like a bacteria, like a natural bacteria, magnesium, like all naturally derived. And I was like, yeah, all right, this is not gonna work. And then it said like only put two to three swipes. It's like it's not like a liquid. It's like only put 2 swipes under each arm. Don't put more. Like 2 or 3 is enough. And I'm like, that's not enough. It's not gonna control my sweat. And I tried it, and dude, it's like, oh my God. It smells so good. Like it smells so good and not chemically. You know how sometimes like good smelling scents or like it smells like it's made in a laboratory. It smells so good. It smells so fresh. And it's gone through the ringer. Like I work out a lot. I sweat a lot. My apartment's hot. I take walks all the time. It's like 90 degrees. Still smelling fresh, baby. For those who didn't see, I sniffed my armpit. Still smells fresh. I literally came from outside, and I've been sweating this whole podcast. So don't regret it. Like highly recommend. Native is like the best thing that's ever happened to me. I can't
Yeah,
even.
I've heard a lot about it. I've seen like a lot of
Have?
YouTube people sponsoring, not sponsoring. Yeah, sponsoring
Yeah,
it.
they're sponsored by Native, which like I actually approached them
Yeah.
for a partnership with us, but I don't think we have enough of a following yet. But like this is how much I believe in it, but they're not even sponsoring us. And I'm like, everyone fucking get Native.
Yeah,
It smells so good.
that's great.
They got me right. Like they made this for me. Like they customized this for me, and I love it.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you want to try it. And then the other thing, sorry, I got carried away by the deodorant. There's this new documentary on Netflix called Disclosure. And it came out like in time for like Pride. And I think Laverne Cox helped produce it. But it's about trans representation in the media and how much either we're lacking, like there's not enough of it, and 2, what is represented in the media is the same. It's either they're sex workers, or they're getting killed all the time, or both, or like they're experiencing violence, or they're the source of disgust. Like people, like it's literally a common thread. They put clips from separate movies where the moment someone finds out they're like someone is transitioned from, like for example, if you transition from like biologically you were born a woman and then you transition to a man, or no, you were born like with male parts and you transition to a woman, and the moment someone found out like by accident or something that they still have a penis, for example, like a common thing that happens in movies is people vomit or people get sick, and they put those clips side by side. Like you don't think it's like, oh, I've never seen that, but it actually is so common, that trope of like people getting sick when they find out someone has a penis and they're a woman. And it's like, and then there are these interviews with like successful in terms of like they've worked so hard to get where they are, but these trans people who are like, can you imagine growing up seeing the representation of you only seeing like the only trans people on screen that you're seeing are reacted to with disgust, or they're always killed, or they're always experiencing violence. Like what sort of it really like I never thought, like, I mean, again, like back to privilege, like of course I've never had to think about this really, because I'm gonna admit it, I don't know anyone personally who's trans, like who's close to me. So I like highly just recommend that for everyone, because yeah, it's, I don't know, it ties back to like the Black Lives Matter movement. Like no, for example, like no one's talking about the Black trans people who have been killed also as a result of violence from our systemic racist, institutions, for example. So yeah, like their lives matter too. And I just learned a lot, and it was very powerful to watch. And I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix, people. Like if you don't have Netflix, you know someone who has Netflix. Like get their password. Just watch it. Okay, that's it. Sorry, I got carried away.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, do you want to close off with the quote? I mean, I guess it's my
The
quote.
quote. Yeah, you can read the quote.
Okay, so we're gonna do our quote of the week. Oh, it's the week, not the day. Quote of the week.
Yeah. Well, we've always said quote of the day, haven't we?
Okay, fine. Quote of the day. So it's two. I found this Instagram post from Elizabeth Earnshaw. She's an LMFT. At Liz Listens, and she talks about what's called happiness anxiety, which is the anxiety you feel when you are on the verge of success, have met a goal, life is easy, or you are experiencing something wonderful in your life. And that seeing that post reminded me of when I was watching Call to Courage by Brene Brown, the vulnerability researcher. And I remember in that special, she had said, in the midst of great things, we literally dress rehearse tragedy. Like we literally practice for this thing to go wrong. Like that's what we practice, as opposed to, here's what she says. Instead, use that sensation as a reminder to be grateful. Practicing gratitude lets us lean into joy. Which is what she said, practicing. It's a practice. It's easy. It's so easy to be like, oh, wow, I got a promotion in this job that I didn't expect to get a promotion for. Instead of like enjoying that and being like, wow, thanks, universe, we're like, oh shit, like they're going to find out I'm not actually good at this. Or like, oh shit, something bad is going to happen. Like, I'm not going to hold this job for very long because like maybe they're going to let people go. Like dress rehearse tragedy. Like we're practicing. We're like girding ourselves to experience something bad to happen because we experienced something good. And that really hit me because like I do that all the time because I never believe it fully. I never fully enjoy or believe it when something good happens. I'm like, yeah, right. This is not for real. As a way of protecting ourselves, of not being vulnerable. I don't know if you have any further thoughts on that, but it really hit me.
No, that makes sense. It's like always being on the defensive mode.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if this is related, but like how stress served us in the past is like fight or flight, because we literally had to like be prepared to fight tigers all the time. And so in the past, like the caveman days, the fight or flight response was actually relevant. But now like that is no longer relevant because there's not, for most of us, there's no like tigers to be like hiding from like every second. So it kind of reminds me of that. I know it's not really related because that's about stress, but it's like this one. Like that feeling of anxiety, you have to ask yourself, is it really serving me right now? Is it useful right now? And most of the time it's not. And it's really like,
right.
we have to
Like
practice.
we're so used to having to fight or fly. Fight or flee. We're so used to being in a situation
In that
of
defensive mode.
an
Yeah.
defensive mode that when something good actually happens, we're like, oh, we should still stay in the defensive mode because like it's not actually good. It's actually a bad thing,
Mhm.
which is not.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
mean, just going back to like just keep practicing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. You're closing.
Yep. Okay, great. Sorry, like really smooth transitions here. So we hope that you all like this episode. We had a great time talking about it, and it's all stuff that means a lot to us. So if you want to tell us about your experiences on this, we would love to hear from you. Again, it's not just our voices here. We want to hear from all different people. So if you want to reach out to us, we have a Instagram for our podcast, which is at Deep Combos Pod with no cast. If you have a lot to say and you want to put something in the email, we are at deepconvospodcast@gmail.com. And then our personal handles are I am Meg.sales.14 and my sister is just Fran Sales.
Yay.
So that is our jank. And
Ew.
reach out.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for spending time with us, delving into all these topics. Looking forward to hearing from you. Until next time.
Bye.